I don't think that it's a controversial opinion that the BBC is pretty good in terms of its entertainment and news. No doubt this is one of the reasons why the BBC is one of the biggest broadcasters in the UK, and has been for 100 years now. I'm quite a fan of the broadcasting company and have been since I was little. Somehow even as a young lad I would find myself interested in the characters within EastEnders and wondered what would happen with Kat and Alfie as they run the Queen Vic. I was eager to tune into shows like Blue Planet, or The Perfect Planet, or definitely one of the many documentary series with Planet in the name that would air every Thursday night. It's also been a lifesaver to watch during Christmases at my grandma's without Wi-Fi, as it gave me a reason to stay up later. And how could I forget shows like Sherlock, Graham Norton, Louis Theroux's documentaries, and Dragon's Den, and I could really go on, but these are all around thanks to the BBC. However, what I don't like is He Who Shall Not Be Named, that annoying little brother that peeps his head up whenever you want to watch something from the BBC. TV licensing. So if you don't know, this is where the BBC gets its funding. As of creating this video, it's an annual payment of £159 per household, which is a lot of money each year when you take into account that around 24.8 million people bought a license between 2020 and 2021. For most people who watch live TV and the BBC often, it makes sense for them to pay for this content, right? Sure. But what about the people who actually don't need to pay for it and use other things? Well, it's almost like the TV license's secondary job is to confuse people enough for them to cave in and buy a license out of sheer guilt. Like everyone else, I received a letter in my first year of university. With mildly threatening terminology, it read out that it was the law to own a TV license if I were to watch live TV or use iPlayer, and that I could be fined up to £1,000. So I did some research, which didn't get me very far, as I couldn't find a cohesive answer as if I'd get in trouble for using iPlayer once. My flat was on a high floor, so I grew less worried when I realised they'd have to go through everyone else below me first if they wanted to visit. But I was still confused as their outdated website provided no reassurance on what I'd actually need a TV licence for. Contradictions and false information littered this website. What has the BBC got to do with anything if you watch something live on another streaming service? Last time I checked, YouTube has nothing to do with the BBC. Do I need a licence if I use my laptop since it's not plugged into the mains? It says that it's excluded in one section, but then again not in another. Nothing happened, so I forgot about it. It's a bit different now that I'm in a house. I no longer have the high ground. The first letter came through the door. Since we wouldn't be watching the BBC or any live TV, there was nothing to worry about. But then the Queen died, so we did put on the news. Another letter came through the door, which was a bit more aggressive than the last, and then another letter. And this one, in a red box, read,
"Will you be home on the 8th of December?
I didn't like that, and anxiety got the best of me and I was dreading that day. Turns out I wasn't the only one wondering if someone would actually turn up, but reading other people's accounts left me even more unsure about what might happen. Sometimes officers do turn up, but then again it's also considered a myth. Some horror stories also scatter the internet about being bullied by the officers who come knocking, barging their way through closed doors even though they're only permitted to enter if they're invited into the house like vampires. Their own website praises themselves of interviewing 20,000 young people in 2019 and catching them for not having a license, which is a pretty good payday for the BBC if these people then bought a license, or an even greater payment if they were then fined. But this is hardly cracking down on the large numbers of people who don't have a license. In fact, it's such a small fraction of people that it seems quite odd to boast about. Maybe everyone else did what I did and hid away from the door. Anyway, the 8th of December rolled around, but they never arrived. Turns out all I missed was a few parcels, but this was enough to stress me out anyway, and I tore off a nail while I wondered who was at the front door. More time passed, but chaos let loose again as another letter was intercepted as it came through the front door, which set off panic in the group chat as I didn't mention the other letters. But I didn't see a need to say anything, considering they never followed through with their other threats. A debate followed whether we should actually give in and contact them, letting them know that we don't need one, which is exactly what they want since it opens the door for them to come snooping around. A large number of social media accounts also share this message by actively resisting threats by binning the letters and ignoring them. And rightly so. People who don't watch the BBC receive these letters of unneeded harassment. Is it really worth it sending these letters out anyway when they're mostly getting binned? At the end of the day, the BBC still needs their funding in order for them to carry on as they have done for many years now. In all honesty, I think I'd be pretty upset if they had to put a stop to everything. Not that they would, but anything's possible. Maybe if they started running ads like this. I'm fairly sure payments and TV licenses would skyrocket for people in my age demographic since it scared us when we were little. Plus it certainly fits the tone in the letters, so it isn't much of a stretch. But on a serious note, I have an actual solution. Maybe it's time for the BBC to catch on with the modern ways to watch entertainment by using a service fee rather than this ridiculous law that's based on trust. Doing this will directly affect their viewers since it stops those who aren't paying a license, but it would also mean that they'll be making a lot more money since viewers would pay a subscription fee like most streaming services. Of course, the news should be kept free since that's important to be broadcasted, but Any other form of entertainment, such as what they provide now, could be charged. I think this is reasonable since it's often their own productions they distribute while they also get the rights to broadcast other productions, which is much like what Channel 4 does. The only difference with them is they're funded by ads, so anyone can tune into their services for free. And since TV licenses can be provided to those who are eligible, such as the over 75s, this also won't distance those who aren't as in touch with technology either. I guess we'll just have to see what happens. And in the meantime, everyone else will carry on as they are and just tell a little white lie when they press, "I have a TV license."